December 16th, 1911, St. Petersburg. Rasputin came to the island at Hermogenes' invitation. He expected to pray and perhaps eat dinner. Not this. Hermogenes, holding an icon, implores Rasputin to repent his wickedness. Then Iliador hits him with a large cross. Rasputin declares that he is a sinner, guilty of lust. He admits he visited sex workers and slept with his followers. They call him a false prophet and make him swear to never go near the royal family again. And according to one account, he agreed. But if he did, it was another sin, because it was a lie. Thanks so much to CuriosityStream for helping us tell today's historic tale. When Hermogenes confronted Rasputin in December of 1911, it signaled a major turning point in his reputation. We don't know exactly what happened, and many accounts of these events disagree. In fact, Iliador may have not even been there, but regardless, the fallout would be extreme. While Rasputin had been in the Holy Land, Iliador had written him asking for his help after his conspiracy-laden screeds against the Prime Minister had led to police involvement. But when a response didn't come fast enough for him, he took Rasputin's silence as a betrayal and turned on him. Soon, he and Hermogenes were central figures in a public campaign to banish Rasputin from court. Iliador in particular pushed the narrative that Rasputin controlled the royal family and was Alexandra's lover. But then, odd things started happening, particularly bad things for Rasputin's enemies. Theophan was exiled, Hermogenes banished to a remote monastery, and Iliador essentially arrested and imprisoned before renouncing his faith and going on the run. Now, there is no evidence that their conflict with Rasputin was the reason for these punishments. The fact is, all three of them were firebrands who'd clashed with both the church and the crown. I mean, heck, Iliador had even gotten a hold of Alexandra and her daughter's letters to Rasputin and initiated a blackmail attempt. But regardless of the facts, the popular narrative was, Rasputin was so powerful, he could have his rivals banished or killed. Yeah, that's right, killed. Months earlier, the Prime Minister, a Rasputin opponent, had been shot, and this too was chalked up in the public eye as another of Rasputin's victims. Then, a barrage of investigations came as the church began investigating Rasputin's beliefs, and the secret police once again began shadowing him in hopes of discovering he was secretly a Kleist. All of this, predictably, caused a furor in the press, who realized that news about Rasputin sold a lot of newspapers. The more salacious and extreme the claims, the better. Tsar Nicholas, rightly understanding that these scandals were undermining the monarchy, gave orders for government officials to meet with editors and discourage the stories. When that failed, he simply had copies of newspapers confiscated. Which is when things got real political. Because one of the biggest reforms after the 1905 revolution was a guaranteed freedom of speech. And in intervening, Nicholas had just forced a standoff between the Crown and the Duma, the Russian National Assembly, also established in 1905. The Duma began debating whether they would open an official inquiry into Rasputin, the Tsar, and the press intervention. And when Nicholas summoned representatives to the palace to talk about it, and then they clashed, it led to a rift between the Duma and the Crown. Basically, Nicholas was used to being an autocrat. His words. It wasn't taking well to the Duma investigating his private life. And actually, Nicholas didn't even seem to have liked Rasputin much. But on principle, he wasn't going to cave. Turns out, some Duma members were only too happy to pick that fight. See, a lot of Duma representatives had been involved in the revolution and wanted to go even farther. So for them, Rasputin was a convenient prop to criticize the monarchy indirectly. The worse Rasputin looked, the more the Romanovs were dragged through the mud. So they went hard at Rasputin, hoping that it would help the cause of revolution. Though, weirdly, monarchists were doing the same thing. They also realized that Rasputin was eroding public support for the Tsar, and thought that if they could smear him badly enough to drive him from court, it would protect the monarchy, which of course backfired, and by 1912 some conservatives were telling each other to stop, lest they bring on a revolution. But there was no putting this demon back in the bottle. In addition to secret police following Rasputin around, there were now reporters tracking his movements. He was the celebrity. It got creepy. Rasputin's eldest daughter received anonymous phone calls from a man trying to bait her into a meeting, claiming to love her. Turns out he was a reporter trying to get close to the family. And this was all getting to be too much. And Rasputin decided, apparently on his own, to go back to Pokrovska for a while. His enemies celebrated this as a victory. Ha! They'd done it! They'd driven him away from... Oh, no, wait, he's back. Yep, on vacation with the Romanovs. Sneaky, sneaky. Because the fact was, the underlying cause of Rasputin's presence hadn't changed. Alexei still, secretly, had hemophilia. Rasputin's presence comforted and calmed Alexandra and her son, which probably in itself helped his healing. In the summer of 1912, 8-year-old Alexei had another episode. A jolting carriage ride had started a hematoma in his thigh, which bled for days and caused him incredible agony. Their son's pain and fever were so bad, Nicholas couldn't even bear to be in the same room and fled weeping. Alexandra was distraught. Alexei received last rites, and he asked his mother to reassure him that when he died, it wouldn't hurt anymore. Informed by Alexandra, Rasputin responded with a telegram. God has seen your tears and heard your prayers. The little one will not die. Do not allow the doctors to bother him too much. Alexei recovered 2 days later. Possibly because Rasputin's confidence lessened the stress on him and his mother. Possibly because doctors stopped prescribing aspirin that thinned his blood and constantly probing the hematoma. And possibly because he just recovered. And look, if you're a parent, you understand how crushing it would be to see your kid in such misery. And you could imagine how you'd fiercely defend anyone who could help in that situation. But the key factor to this is, the public didn't understand that, because it didn't know that Alexei had hemophilia. So to them, Rasputin's continued presence was inexplicable at best, sinister at worst. What did he have on the Romanovs? Had he hypnotized them? Was he controlling them? Were they just weak? Don't they care the entire country hated this man and wanted him gone? He became even more controversial during the First Balkan War, when he lobbied the royal family to keep Russia out of the conflicts and pursue a policy of peace. War, he worried, would simply hurt the peasants and could even pull in the great powers and ruin Russia. Despite his supposed influence, it should be noted that Russia did join the First Balkan War, though not the second. But his anti-war stance made him even more controversial. Government ministers, even family members, started their own private campaigns to get him expelled. The secret police continued their surveillance, initially giving Rasputin the codename Ruski, or the Russian, but later changing his designation to the Dark One. They chronicled his trips with female followers to bathhouses and visits to sex workers. Agents tailed anyone who had contact with him and read their mail. Though still, after all of this, when they presented Nicholas their report, he discarded it. But there were other plans to get rid of Rasputin. Violent plans. The police foiled at least one, and then it happened. June 1914, Pokrovska, Siberia. Rasputin has just stepped out his front door, hoping to catch a telegram messenger he'd just dispatched. That's when he sees the woman. She's disheveled, strange, wearing a bonnet and veil so only her eyes show. Though her veil is oddly flat, as if she lacks a nose. A common symptom for poor sex workers who have been ravaged by syphilis. Thinking she's seeking money, he greets her and takes out his wallet. Then she steps close and plunges an 18-inch dagger into his stomach. He clasps his hands at his belly, running down the street yelling for help. The strange woman pursues, holding the bloody knife high. In a moment of quick thinking, Rasputin notices a big stick, snatches it up, and clubs the woman across the head. An investigation will find that the woman is a 33-year-old peasant and mentally unstable. A devoted follower of Heliodor, after reading his attacks on Rasputin, she'd taken it upon herself to kill the devil and stalked him across several cities. Rasputin's surgery was messy, very touch and go. Bad enough that newspapers in the capital, employing the usual exaggeration, actually reported his death. His enemies drank toasts and celebrated. Until a few days later, that is, when it came out that Rasputin had lived. A recovery owed to a good surgeon and strong constitution, but that appeared to the public like a supernatural resurrection. For it would take more than a stab wound to kill Rasputin. It would take a prince. But what does it take, you may ask, to kill ad reads like this one off a ton of your favorite internet content? Well, thanks to Nebula support, we're able to offer a ton of extra credits, extra history, and extra mythology episodes, all ad-free on their platform, as well as a few Nebula originals, such as the extra history Tipu Sultan, Tiger, or Tyrant, and my episode of their working title series, where I get to jam about the opening sequence of Cowboy Bebop. Yeah, I promise I don't butcher Yoko Kanno's iconic theme over there. We love Nebula because they're a by creators for creators streaming service, featuring original content from some of our favorite educational entertainers on the internet, such as Renee Ritchie, Tirzu, and Princess Weeks. And you know who else loves independent educational creators? Curiosity Stream. So much so, in fact, that they've teamed up with us over at Nebula to offer a phenomenal 2-for-1 deal, meaning sign up for CuriosityStream using our link in the description, and they'll throw in a matching Nebula subscription for free. Sorry. If you're new to the game, CuriosityStream is an online learning platform where you can watch thousands of amazing documentaries and award-winning original series. And since we've been on a Russia kick lately, we're in the middle of their Empire of the Tsars series, where Lucy Worsley travels in the footsteps of the Romanovs, who ruled for more than 3 centuries, until they didn't. So head over to curiositystream.com/extra credits right now to get both of these amazing resources for only $14.97 for an entire year. And that's 26% off the regular price. Not to mention, you'll be helping out our channel in the process. Thanks, Space Cowboys. Sorry, not sorry. That's right, Zoe. Ahmed Ziad Turk, Alicia Bramble, Casey Mustia, Dominic Valenciana, Joseph Blame, Kyle Murgatroyd, and O'Reels1 are fantastic legendary patrons.